Thank you, folks. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you for joining into this particular session of Zobin Talks. This is episode number 3, season 3 of Zobin Talks. And this is the last episode in our segment related to customer success. We've got so many questions over the past 3-4 months, and that's the reason why we created this particular segment and focused on customer success. Today, I'm personally excited, and I'm really happy to be speaking with Chirabrata Das. Chirabrata Das is currently heading the customer success function at Saas, and he's worked at brilliant companies before this. I mean, all companies that I really respect. Starting from Whatfix to Unbox to Yellow, and right now at Saas. Thank you, Chirabrata, for taking time out, and I think this is going to be a really real killer session.
So much, Amrit, for inviting me, and happy to be part of this discussion. Looking forward to sharing my experiences and learnings over the last 8 odd years that I have been in the customer success function.
8 years means you're a dinosaur in this particular industry. I could say that, and getting straight to the topic. You've completed your MBA, and you initially started your career as a project manager at a very large private bank. How did that switch from working in a very regulated space like banking and in a project management division to customer success? How did that transition happen?
Great question, and so thank you so much. But I would like to highlight that as part of the private bank, I was not into the regular banking.
Okay.
Our team was known as innovation banking, and the KPI of that team was to figure out all innovative technologies which were not in the banking sphere in India, but could be brought in to the banking sphere. So we used to attend various events, webinars, go into colleges, look at various innovative stuff that was happening across India, and based on our judgment, took it up within the bank as part of a small POC. It could be with one function or one division. Advantage back then was we had a direct line of connect with our CEO. So the decision and turnaround was quick. Luckily, Whatfix was one of such tools that came to present their product into the bank. And that's when I got to know the co-founders. And yes, so the idea back then was quite innovative. I had not seen that kind of a product in India, for that matter. I didn't have that kind of visibility into the world market. So I felt it had a good prospect in the future. And luckily, when they posted the JD, again, customer success back then was not a defined role or function within India. It was quite a mature thing in the US market, but in India, it was still people from sales or people with technical background or people from support doing the so-called success management. So the JD that was put out, I felt whatever was required as part of the role, I was already doing that. Even though it was not directly customer facing, but whatever I said so far, it was in a way similar to what was expected to be done with customers. I took a chance, applied, and didn't hear back as usual. But since I knew, luckily I dropped a email directly to both the founders that it's been a decent while since I applied, and it would be helpful if you could let me know whether I'm still in consideration or I shouldn't, which was a good thing because they were busy with raising their next round of funding and they had not looked at the applications that had come in for the role. So this from personal experience, very few people when applying for a role follow up, especially when you are not applying through any references.
Correct.
So that I feel helped me in a way, and the interviews got scheduled and I got hired. It's a long story, but yeah, that's how Whatfix happened, and that's how I moved from the banking space into the SaaS industry way back in 2015.
What was the first thing that you felt, oh, this is different? This is a really different role. It's probably not well defined in India. What is it that you found when you stepped into that role back in 2015?
So when I joined Whatfix, we were based out of a small bungalow, 7-member team. I was the 7th person. The day both the founders gave me ample time to settle down, but next day onwards, Khadim walked up and said, "We have a list of these customers. We have not been able to focus on most of them. Get started with getting to introducing yourself and getting to know the primary contact point in a better way and understand how are they using the platform." So that was the brief given to me. Fortunately, unfortunately, I started with almost 30 plus, all small customers. And by the end of the year, that number went up to 50s, and I lost almost 20 of them because primarily there were no interactions happening at any level.
Okay.
So that's when, so like most companies initially, depending on the product maturity, you initially start out with ensuring that whatever the tool has been purchased for, the customer is using it in the right way. So initially, at least from my experiences, support is something what Indian customers are used to.
Correct.
So that was the primary role that I started with, wherein ensuring, because of the large number of customers, ensuring that whatever they were trying to achieve out of the tool, they are able to achieve that. That was the first thing that we tried to achieve. Once we were able to achieve that, that's when it helped us ask for what other problems you are facing in your current role and how the tool could help in solving those problems as well. That's when customers start, again, depends on the role of the person, seniority of the person on the client side. That's when they started referencing us to other teams basis how easy the tool became over a period of time and how it was helping them solve their pain points. And gradually, we also started growing the team. Again, CS back then, it was more of reading what was happening around the world, what people did in other geographies, learning from those articles and trying to implement them in the Indian scenario. Some things worked, some things didn't work, but learning from on-ground experiences and moving ahead. So that transition from a support mindset to a consulting / proactive mindset, it took time, even for us.
Okay. And you mentioned that you were the 7th employee at Whatfix, and today Whatfix is a unicorn in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
And the first customer success rep. I don't know if it was a manager role or just an associate role, but we know at employee number 7 there's literally no designation.
Mm-hmm.
But let's assume that you were the first person responsible for customer success at Whatfix, and that was back in 2015. From there, we've personally witnessed the growth that Whatfix has, and even the other companies. But how did you really scale the team, the customer success team at Whatfix? That's number one. And number two, while the company is scaling and becoming a unicorn, from a 7-member company to a unicorn, you as an individual yourself need to upskill your individual abilities. How did you manage that? What did that happen? So this is the two-part question, both on scaling the team front as well as upskilling or reskilling yourself.
Sure. To start with, I started out as an IC person, and that was the case for almost 2 years till we were a decent size wherein various roles could be defined. But to start with, I was doing the pre-sales job. So the sales guys giving demos, any technical questions coming in as part of the demos, I went in, answered. Obviously, our co-founder was very proactive in the terms of assisting the sales guys, but as the leads started increasing, parallel calls happening, that's when, because I ensured that I learned the product much better and much quicker than most of the sales folks, it helped me get into those calls, answering the questions from the technical standpoint. And it was helpful from my standpoint because I tried to ensure whatever was there in the product, that information was passed on. most of the times, some things which are coming out in the future, those were also presented as part of the product. But when the customer came in expecting the feature to be there and it was not there in the product right then, the conflict started happening. So just to avoid those kind of scenarios and from our own benefit, that helped even the sales folks to be in lines with what kind of customers they are bringing in. Quick anecdote. So because of this, why this helped is there was a case wherein sales closed a deal at 1 a.m. tonight, 1 a.m. India time tonight. The customer wanted to do the onboarding the very next day. I went into the call 11 p.m. next day. What they asked was not possible, even with some workarounds, and they asked for a refund. So that was the quickest churn I have faced in my entire life. So, fortunately, both the founders supported what was right, and they were quite okay in ensuring the kind of customers that we are continuing to work with. So that was a big plus from our standpoint. Now, coming to the question, how the team grew and as customers started increasing. So I raised my hand up and said, I can't do it after a point in time because I was handling 4 time zones.
Okay.
Right from customers starting out in Australia till Eastern time zone customers in US.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So practically when it was not possible, that's when we started hiring the team, and a senior person came in who became our boss, and it was with his guidance we were able to implement the processes and streamline the processes, because me being more of a hands-on guy, I was not able to give time to setting up the processes. So there was a senior person who was hired, and he was more strategically focused, and we were more aligned to how to implement those strategies in place. So the first thing that was decided upon is to categorize the customers or the kind of customers that are coming in, because with the team size that any startup would have, it won't be practically possible to give the same amount of time to each and every customer that is coming in. So categorizing customers and what kind of services are being offered to each tier customer, that was defined and passed on to sales team as part of the sales cycle. So customers knew what they can expect once they are signing up with the product. Next important thing, like any other company, we wanted to have positive reviews from customers on the public channels. So that was that still is a focus across companies, and that's where I believe conflict happens. So reviews is never a problem because it's a direct link. You get the reviews, job done from a customer standpoint. Challenge happens when you ask for a case study. So at least from my experience, it is always better to own getting case studies by the CS person, because you know the people whom you are working with and you can push them to get the relevant data out, even though that data might not be present on your platform. But so what we used to do is get the relevant data points in crude format and pass it on to the marketing team to create the structure of a case study out of those data points. Once that came in, it was sent back to the customer for reviews. Once they approved, that went out to our social channels.
And that's a fairly beautiful process. I mean, you're getting the raw data, and the beautification work will be done by the marketing team, maybe using few marketing lingos that they like.
Yeah.
But and then again give it back to the customer to make sure that everything is sanitized and they're all okay with it.
So that process worked. But having said that, as we started growing, customers were not, as in the contact points were not allowed to sign off on something as part of their formal communication strategy. They had to get internal approvals before anything was posted from their side on public channels. So that made us realize that a clause has to be put as part of the contract that this will be required when you are signing up, and it has to come from the proper channels within so and so time. So again, everyone, and good thing, not just me, all my colleagues that we hired initially, all were in with the same mindset that we need to get this done in the proper way so that it puts out a correct thought process, not just within the company but also outside the company, so and customers or even their references understand what we are expecting on an ongoing basis.
I mean, I can personally relate to this, especially this legal angle, because we were working with not just India, but one of the world's largest automobile companies. And they've been a happy customer. They continue to be a happy customer. They've given us, the reviews. But the moment we asked for a case study, everything is done. In the last moment, there was the legal team which put in a spanner in the business and said that, okay, this has to go through our corporate marketing channel
Yeah.
and has to go through the legal team. And we've never, it was the first time for us. We never faced that problem with any other customer. And I don't know how. I have to ask my customer success team, did they manage to pull that off? But I can completely relate to this particular problem. And it's good that you put those aspects out in the contract itself,
So
so that
that, okay, like you said, we also learned it the hard way. Once we hit a roadblock with a couple of customers, we started pushing to have that line put as part of the contract.
correct,
Invariably, that was struck off by most of the larger customers or with approvals was added.
correct.
But it is better to put it as part of the contract so that when it comes to the actual people who will be working with the product, they know that this is already part of the contract.
Yeah. So you've got a great career. I mean, you started off as customer success manager number one. 4 years you started leading customer success team. From there you went to Yellow, Unboxed, and in those companies you built the customer success function yourself. Uh, I want to ask you, what is your style of building a team, and what do you do when you're hiring? What is your style of hiring? What kind of interview questions do you ask? I've got a whole bunch of things on that topic. So let's start with your what do you look for when you are hiring a customer success manager or a customer success rep?
Okay. So I would rephrase it to whether the person would be an IC or an individual contributor versus whether a person would be leading a team and contributing in a different way. So when I am looking to hire an IC, my primary point of observation during the interview process is how much does a person know about what he or she is doing currently in their current job role.
Okay.
And if it's a fresher, then how much the person is willing to learn on an ongoing basis. One important piece, I don't know whether this is relevant in the current job role, but at least during my initial years, Indians, and this is again a cultural thing, we tend to cut people out when anyone is speaking. If we have an answer in mind or if we have something which is relatable and we want to speak it out then and there. And this I learned in the hard way. When you are speaking with customers or as a CS person, you need to first listen into all the information before you give out any information. So that is something, again, not everyone is good at it, but if someone is good at it, that will be a big plus for them in getting into a CS role. So not just being a good listener, allowing someone else to complete before sharing your thoughts. That is the second point. Thirdly, and most importantly, if he or she is an IC, they should know their numbers. So, and
Okay.
this has happened mostly with people in the 2 to 4 years experience range that I have interviewed. Most of the folks don't know their numbers, and by the numbers I mean what is the ARR or MRR that you're totally handling, how much cross sell or upsell, if you are responsible for it, have you hit in the last quarter, what is the percentage churn that you have faced. Typically the numbers that you would internally be responsible for your own performance and your team's performance as well. So when you are going in the interviews, not every interviewer will ask for these, but having those numbers handy, because this is not giving out any customer specific data. These are general numbers.
Correct.
And coming to the other aspect, if I am looking to hire someone who is going to be a manager or a leader in the team, obviously the team management skill set is something how what we look for, and how we judge that is basis some scenarios that we would I personally would give during the interview. And again, no right or wrong answer from the person, but basis what he or she answers, I put on follow-up questions and see how they react to it.
Mm-hmm.
In certain cases, cornering them with a completely aggressive response, seeing how they react to it, or in case wherein a real life scenario wherein a customer is looking to go out, how would they the CSM has spoken and he or she is not able to convince the customer, how would you go in and talk with the customer and try to see or figure out a way how this could be delayed, if not completely stopped then and there. So those kind of scenario based questions is what we're looking for. And even though the person might be a team lead, but willingness of that person to get their hands dirty, meaning if their team member is not there or most of the team is on leave, will they be able to do the stuff rather than by themselves, rather than waiting for their team to come back and help them out. So those kind of aspects is what we look for. But yeah, happy to know if there are any pointed questions around the same topic.
No, I think so. You're saying for an individual contributor, you're looking at the learnability skill and how quickly do they learn stuff. You're looking at number two, how well they know their numbers, and you're looking at active listening or active communication skills for an IC.
I see.
For a manager, you're looking at they should not be afraid of getting their hands dirty, and they should not be they should have the right kind of team management skills, and you will probably give them different kind of situations, scenarios, and see how they react to that.
Yeah.
Can we double down a little bit more on the situation judgment part? I mean, what kind of scenarios and role playing do you do with customer success manager level positions?
So two aspects. One would be a customer facing kind of a scenario, which might be a customer has decided to churn. How will you try and figure out a way if this could be delayed? CS manager or a team lead kind of a person, I typically ask for two scenarios. One wherein a customer facing scenario, let's say a customer is about to churn, what he or she can do apart from offering discounts in ensuring that the customer continues utilizing the tool. What I am looking for typically in this kind of a scenario is to figure out the reason from the customer on why they have decided to move out of the product, whether it is pricing, whether it is they have not found value after utilizing the tool for so and so period, or they have got a better offer from a competitor.
Okay.
So if they are able to get that out in some form or other, that's good. The second scenario is more internal, wherein I don't know how to put this in a better way, but have they faced a scenario wherein they had to let someone go from the team, and how did they handle that?
Right. I think that is a very difficult situation that I think everyone at a manager level dreads. I think especially in the scenario that we are in, a lot of people dread that particular thing. But yeah, it's a good way to figure out if people are upfront and can they share negative news well enough. So here's a question, Chirabrata, that I got from a couple of my customers after I told them that I'm going to have a conversation with you. You've Whatfix, of course, is a very North America enterprise facing company. So you would have dealt with a lot of the enterprises in the North American region.
Mm-hmm.
And later on in your career, you worked at Yellow, where you are building the customer success function for Southeast Asia, right?
Yeah.
So these are two completely different geographies. One being North America, another being Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any difference in the way a customer success individual works
Mm-hmm.
with companies from these two geographies?
Mm-hmm.
And what is that difference, or what was the difference in the business dynamics that you felt while you were interacting with customers from these two different geographies? Any personal anecdotes that you have on that front?
Sure. So, just like to highlight, I handled the US geography in Whatfix in the initial days. So, the enterprise customers were not of the size that they are currently.
Okay.
But yes, I would talk from that standpoint. Um, the biggest advantage working with US customers is they respect your time. They would expect that when you're coming in a meeting, you come prepared, and they will help with all the support from their side. Geography, the customers there are used to working with um, folks from across the world. So they value your time and they value their time as well. So they come in prepared and they expect the same with you as well. Um, and having worked already with cross-cultural people, they are able to, and kind of market being a mature market, they always talk stuff which is relevant to the point and go off. Southeast Asia, and again, I'm not generalizing this. Southeast Asia, even though we say Southeast Asia, each country there has its own nuances. And that is where we face the first challenge. You need to have someone in the team who speaks the local language in Southeast Asia. So that cultural connect, which I feel is also prevalent somewhat in India, not across the metro cities, but if you're able to speak with someone who knows your language, you connect better. And having worked in Yellow during the COVID times, that was the biggest challenge that we faced. And because face-to-face meetings were rare. Most of the times we used to connect with our customers over calls. And that reminds, so yes, we did hire folks in the relevant countries, at least one person as part of the CS team who could be the face of the company on the ground. And we were able to get more information out. But having said that, Southeast Asian countries are much like India.
Okay.
Culturally. So they would rather WhatsApp you or pick a phone and call you up and get things done rather than waiting for the meeting to happen or giving time for the meeting. So that's the basic difference per se. And yes, much like Zoom calls, and this is again something cultural that I have noticed, South Asians are not comfortable coming on camera, which the Americans and Europeans are. So that might be the certain differences that we have noticed. Working style, much like India, Southeast Asians are on similar lines, wherein, again, depending on the organization, if it's an enterprise, which is a global organization, you can expect the same style of working, much like US. But if it's not a large organization or not a global organization based out of Southeast Asia, you can expect them to be on similar lines as a mid-tier Indian organization.
Okay. Okay. So just one question before we round up on the hiring and the team management part of it. A lot of customers face problems because they're setting up the customer success function for the first time. It's very new. People don't know about what kind of KPIs, what kind of targets should the management set, because it's new for everyone, right? Based on your experience, how do you really think management teams should set targets and KPIs for customer success functions? What do you think has worked well for you?
So again, I will answer this before answering what the companies should first figure out the why. Why do they need this CS function?
Okay.
So that would give out certain pointers around the KPIs of the CS function. Because most startup founders or most companies, now it's not the case, but earlier CS was the last or function that used to be created in any organization.
Right.
What fix, fortunately, was the other way around. I was hired even when couple of other functions were not formed. So that is something which, so if the why is answered properly, that would give out some inputs on what could be the KPIs for the CS function. Primarily, what I have seen across companies, to start with, when the CS function is formed, what should a CS person be responsible for? The primary KPI is something which the founders should be clear about. And again, this is my personal opinion, they should not push for, they should not consider success to be a growth function.
Okay.
Success will be a growth function as the company matures. But when you are starting to build a customer success function, don't expect it to be a growth function, much on similar lines like sales. The success cycle, or the time it requires for the success function to yield results, is much longer.
Okay.
But once it starts yielding results, it will compensate for the initial time lag that the company would have given for the function to mature. From a personal standpoint, retention should be the primary metric, which I believe everyone cares about. Now, retention could be in some form correlated to the NRR percentage of the company. So that is something which could be the primary metric or the North Star metric that a CS function could start with. And depending on the maturity of the function, and the company matures, start with, if there are natural cross sells or upsells happening, that should be allowed to be owned by the CS person, and the benefits should be passed on to the CS person, much like any CS or any sales or account management. As the founders start seeing decent amount of natural cross sells and upsells happening, account management or one person could be hired to focus on those key accounts wherein the growth potential is high, and not letting a person who has closed that large account continue working on that account, because the mindset has to be different for an account manager versus a salesperson.
Okay.
And yes, there will always be a debate that if expansion happens after an account manager is in, the CS person feels that it is my work that is reaping benefits and I'm not getting compensated at all. So how that compensation benefits could be passed on to both the roles is something which the founders need to give a good thought. What worked in certain cases in my past roles, I'll not name the organizations, incentivizing the CS folks for getting in the leads and the account management team working on those leads to convert them into closures.
Okay. Now, you touched upon one of the points, and I'd like to kind of elaborate on that. There's a lot of material online regarding how should you onboard an employee. There's a lot of proper, legit material online. But there isn't a lot of written stuff online on how should there be transition within the customer success team itself. It could be for multiple reasons. Let's say the customer success individual is probably transitioning out of the company, or the company or the customer that you're dealing with has gotten from a startup plan to an enterprise plan. Probably the usage is going to be different. You probably need a different customer success manager dealing that. What we've always seen is that particular handshake, when the customer itself is upgrading, or someone is leaving the company, that is pretty weak. Have you thought of any process or policy to strengthen that particular aspect? Because There's not much that is said or spoken about this.
Great question. Again, and there is a reason why there is not good material around this. It is not just the processes which can solve this, it is the human bond which works in this case. It is not just internal changes, even if something changes at the customer side or our Spock is leaving from the customer side, someone else is replacing. For a CS person, it is as good as a new account because chances of that account not renewing or churning within a short span, from my experience, becomes high. So how we can ensure that at least the internal transition happens properly as far as possible, if even if the account is growing from, let's say, an SMB to an enterprise based on internal metrics, as far as possible, if the CS person is not moving out of the role or the company, I would recommend to have the same CS person be part of the account in some form. That would be the first recommendation. But like you said, what would be a good way is a smooth handover from the current person to the next person. What I mean by a smooth handover is a period of at least 2 to 3 weeks wherein both the person going out and the person coming in, they should be taking in all the calls together, FaceTiming with the customer. Ideally, a face-to-face meeting helps in a long way in addressing this. Again, during COVID scenarios, this was not possible. So ensuring at least 2 to 3 weeks of overlap between the two person on our side, ensuring proper documentation, like you mentioned, and the documentation primarily would involve the organization metrics clearly defined from a customer standpoint, and who are the key people across roles or across levels whom the CS person feels are important from our deal standpoint, and ensuring that new person coming in has had at least one FaceTime with each key person before the older person moves out. If that is not possible, ensuring our primary Spock at the client, he or she starts treating the new person in the same vein as the old person, and he or she ensures that new person is getting introduced to the senior folks at the client end after the person has moved out, current CS person has moved out of his or her role.
Awesome. I think, yeah, that makes sense. So you're saying 2 to 3 weeks is sufficient, or is there more time that might be needed?
Depends, again, it all depends on the kind of relationship the existing person, and this is not the working relationship I'm talking about. I have seen colleagues of mine, they, whenever they are visiting a particular city, they meet the client contact outside work hours, they go out for a lunch, dinner, or a beer in the evening. So that kind of relationship, how the new person coming in is able to build, that definitely won't be possible within those 2 to 3 weeks. But what I am recommending is ensuring how smooth the handover is, so that the new person coming in is aware about each and everything from a role standpoint and the items that are ongoing from the product implementation or a product usage standpoint. That is sufficient, I feel, for a smooth handover internally.
Okay.
Now, from building that relationship with the customer, again, it all depends on person to person, and it might be someone who is good might be able to build that rapport within that 2 or 3 weeks time span. Someone might take a couple of weeks more, but that is, no one can judge what is an ideal time to build that rapport with the customer, and depends again on the nature of the person who is coming in, whether he or she is experienced or whether he or she is within the same company for some time moving into this role. That also matters, because I have seen CSMs being hired from outside and starting to handle customers for a person who was with the company for 3 years and he or she is moving out. So in that case, the person who is coming in, they might come in with thinking what has worked in their past roles might also work there. So that is when I feel the person would need more time, wherein they would need to understand the internal dynamics first on how the company works, and then try to build that kind of a relationship with your customers. But if someone is seasoned within the company, that transition is much quicker.
True. I think that makes sense. Anyways, I think Chirabrata, we've run out of time. Uh, Thank you so much. I think this was great. We covered a lot of topics. I really like the fact that the way you are interviewing customer success candidates, both from an IC function to the team player. I think that was really interesting, and to very large extent, I resonate with your thoughts on how you deal with customers, or your experience with customers from North America versus customers from Southeast Asia. Uh, have you worked with customers from the Middle East as well?
Yes, but Middle East as a geography, they prefer face-to-face interaction. So we always worked with partners who are based out of Middle East,
Okay.
and they were front-ending customers on our behalf. And
Okay.
this I have seen across companies. Middle East as a geography primarily works well with partners.
Great, great. I think that's a good learning lesson for us. Quick anecdote. I think one of our first enterprise customers from the Middle East was from Qatar, and
Mhm.
we thought, we deal with these kind of customers the way we dealt with our customers from US and the way we dealt with our enterprise customers in India, and that went down that pretty soon. We figured out that we can't talk to them in that particular way. We can't
Mhm.
write emails in the same way.
Yeah,
The business dynamics that you spoke about, it's very different
different.
when you're dealing with customers in Middle East versus customers from the other geographies. And it's always good to learn these particular aspects. I think we'll cover that particular part. If you have some thoughts on that, would love to
Sure. But
bounce off.
good thing for us being Indians, you will find an Indian across every geography who can be your face in that geography and who has been in that geography for a decent amount of years.
True, true,
So,
true. I think,
part
yeah, but partners seems to be like the way forward. But even the CS function is, uh, does the partner take care of the CS function also?
so okay. We had something called as partner success, where as a CS team, you are enabling your partners to work with your customers.
Okay,
So for the CS person, their customers is the partners.
okay. So the support ticket, who raises the support ticket? Does the partner raise a support ticket and then you solve it, or your team solves it, or?
Depends again. This could be a separate topic, like you mentioned, because depends on which model the actual end customer is working on. If the end customer has visibility to you in some form or the other, then the tickets could be raised by the end customer. You solve it, and they get updated. But
Okay.
if the end customer has no visibility of yours, it's the partner who is front ending anything and everything with your end customer.
Mhm.
So it comes from the partner, and you solve it, goes back from the partner to the actual customer.
Got it. Great. I think we've got an idea for our next webinar as well. But I think this is great. Thank you so much. I think we've learned a lot, and even those who've joined in have learned a lot. Really appreciate you taking 45 minutes time out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Take care.